Welcome back to Bourbon Hunter, the channel where we chase great bottles, break down bourbon myths, and occasionally make some questionable life choices, all in the name of whiskey research. Here, we're diving into the stories behind the bottles, the trends shaking up the bourbon world, and the pours that'll make you say, yep, that's going on the top shelf. So grab a glass, settle in, and let's hunt some flavor, because around here, the bourbon's bold, the jokes are bad, and the hunt is always on. Imagine paying nearly $1,000 for a rare bottle and discovering it's not the real thing. That happened at Acker, America's oldest wine shop, when an undercover buyer bought what was sold as Colonel E.H. Taylor 4-grain. Today, we break down how they caught it, what Acker said, and how you can spot fakes before you buy. Acker's roots trace all the way back to 1820, making it the oldest wine shop in America. Originally founded by a Scottish immigrant family, the store began as a humble grocery and luxury goods shop. Over decades, ownership passed through clerks John Condit, William Merrill, and David Acker. The name eventually became Acker, Merrill, and Condit. Through the 19th and early 20th centuries, Acker expanded across Manhattan, serving the city's elite, supplying Fifth Avenue mansions, high society events, and even shipping wine aboard the Titanic. The shop weathered wars, depression, and prohibition, emerging as a trusted name in fine wine and spirits. Fast forward to the late 20th century, Acker narrowed its focus, specializing in rare and collectible wines and spirits. Under third-generation owner John, expanded into auctions in 1998, transforming from a neighborhood shop into a global auction powerhouse. These weren't your typical stuffy auctions. They became lively events, pairing tasting experiences with high-stakes bidding. By 2011, the company surpassed $100 million in annual auction revenues, eventually crossing $1 billion lifetime in sales. Acker's reach extended worldwide, even opening offices in Hong Kong to tap into the growing Asian market for rare wine and spirits. Because of its history, pedigree, global reach, Acker became the go-to for rare bottles and investment-grade spirits. Collectors trusted the shop for authenticity and access to bottles otherwise impossible to find. Its auctions shaped the secondary market, helping set prices and influencing trends across the rare wine and spirits world. Acker's name became synonymous with trust, a stamp of authority that reassured buyers they were purchasing the real deal. Rare bottles mean rare money, and where there's money, there's motivation for fraud. In 2021, Inside Edition sent an investigative producer into Acker Wines, one of the oldest wine merchants in the U.S., to buy a rare bottle of Colonel E.H. Taylor 4-grain bourbon. The salesperson assured them that it was genuine and it was sold at nearly $1,000, even though secondary market prices were often much higher. But when that bottle was sent to Buffalo Trace Distillery, the Kentucky distillery that actually makes E.H. Taylor, experts confirmed it was counterfeit. It lacked key authenticity markers like the proper lot code and protective tube. It had the strip stamp applied backwards, and most importantly, the liquid inside didn't match the real bourbon's proof or chemical profile. In short, the bottle's contents were not Buffalo Trace's bourbon at all. Buffalo Trace's technical director, John Medley, ran a full evaluation and immediately identified multiple red flags. First, the bottle was missing two things every authentic bottle ships with: the specific lot code number and the branded protective packaging tube that Buffalo Trace uses. Medley also pointed out that the tax strip stamp was applied backwards, a glaring sign of tampering or forgery. But the biggest confirmation came from lab work. A chemical analysis showed the liquid's proof and composition didn't match anything Buffalo Trace produces, meaning the contents weren't genuine E.H. Taylor bourbon at all. Medley concluded that based on all testing and inspection, it was not authentic Buffalo Trace product. These checks are exactly the kind of authentication collectors depend on, and are often the only way to be certain a rare bottle isn't actually counterfeit. After the inside investigation was aired, Acker Wines publicly addressed what happened. In their statement, the shop said that they hadn't acquired the suspect bourbon directly from the distillery or a distributor at all, but from a private collector, a source outside the approved supply chain. Acker said that months before the Inside Edition contacted them, they themselves had noticed possible authentication issues with a particular batch of Colonel E.H. Taylor. They had launched their own internal review. They even reached out to Sazerac, the parent company of Buffalo Trace, for further verification. When their concerns weren't resolved, the store pulled all the questionable bottles from their shelves, stopped buying spirits from that private collector, and refunded every customer who had previously purchased one, except for one person who couldn't be contacted. Acker also said it was committed to authenticity and post-incident had invested in stronger authentication processes, including hiring independent spirit authenticators and expanding its spirit division. These steps, they said, were designed to prevent anything like this from happening again. But that wasn't the end of it. In 2023, the New York State Liquor Authority took up the matter and fined Acker $100,000, noting that the shop had purchased spirits from an unauthorized source on multiple occasions and failed to keep proper records, which is a violation of state liquor law. The fine was the maximum the SLA could impose for this kind of offense, and state records show it involved several transactions between 2020 and 2021, in addition to the fake E.H. Taylor bottle at issue. Later, public records and official regulatory filings confirmed that Acker, Merrill, and Condit eventually settled with the New York State Liquor Authority over this and related compliance issues. In early 2023, the SLA announced that Acker had agreed to pay the $100,000 civil penalty, the maximum fine allowed under state law for this type of violation, to resolve allegations of purchasing spirits from unauthorized sources and failing to maintain required books and records, including multiple purchases between 2020 and 2021 that raised authenticity concerns. Regulators cited the fake Colonel E.H. Taylor 4-grain bottle exposed by Inside Edition as part of the broader pattern of noncompliance, including 5 separate instances of unauthorized sourcing and record-keeping violations. The steep fine underscores how seriously state authorities treat rebottling, counterfeit sales, and lapses in inventory control in the secondary market, especially when historic and highly reputable retailers are involved. Public agency records show Acker offered the settlement to avoid more severe penalties, including potential license revocation. Counterfeiting in the high-end spirits world isn't just hypothetical. It's a real and growing problem, driven by skyrocketing demand and massive prices for rare bottles. As bourbon's popularity has grown, with total U.S. sales reaching over $5 billion in 2022, and rare bottles fetching thousands on the secondary market, scammers have increasingly targeted this niche. They often buy empty bottles of coveted brands like Pappy Van Winkle or other Buffalo Trace releases and refill them with cheaper spirits before reselling and relabeling them for sale at luxury prices. This tactic works because vintage empty bottles can sell for hundreds of dollars online, and once refilled and resealed, they appear authentic until you test the contents. Counterfeiters use social media, online marketplaces, and private sales groups to reach buyers, sometimes even selling fake bottles to legitimate retailers unwittingly. Experts in the bourbon community estimate that roughly 10% of the bottles on the secondary market could be counterfeit, with rare American whiskeys sold outside regulated channels being especially vulnerable. These scams not only cost collectors money, but also damage the trust in the broader market, which is why distillers and authentication tech companies are investing in new anti-fraud tools like blockchain tracking and molecular markers. In short, as demand and prices for rare bourbon skyrocketed, counterfeiters found profit in rebottling and relabeling, and today it's one of the biggest risks for serious collectors. So how do you protect yourself? Here's a buyer checklist: how to spot fake bourbon before you buy. Ask where and when did they acquire the bottle. A documented chain of ownership is one of the strongest protections you can have as a buyer. Collectors and reputable auction houses emphasize this because bottles without clear, dated history are far more likely to be counterfeit or tampered with. Keeping receipts and emails showing purchase history gives you leverage if things go wrong. Check packaging. Many releases come in branded tubes with lot codes. If the lot code is missing, be suspicious. For many high end bourbons, including E.H. Taylor 4 grain, every bottle typically ships with a special branded tube and lot codes laser etched or printed on the bottle. These codes denote its production batch and are used by distillers to trace authenticity. A missing tube or an absent lot code is not definitive proof on its own, but it's a major red flag, especially combined with other issues. Inspect the strip stamp and label alignment. Backwards seal or off registration is a big red flag. Experts in packaging inspection note that genuine strip stamps and tax seals are applied consistently and precisely at the distillery. When counterfeiters refill bottles and reseal them, they often misapply these elements, such as placing the strip stamp backwards or with poor alignment, which should immediately raise suspicion. Compare proof, color, fill level to known authentic examples. And if in doubt, ask the distiller to test. All authentic bourbon bottles have a known proof alcohol content and expected color based on its age and mash bill. In the Acker case, when the bottle was sent to Buffalo Trace Distillery, chemical analysis revealed the bourbon inside didn't match their product, the biggest confirmation of fake liquid. Some collectors also pay attention to fill levels. Irregular levels, too high or too low compared to genuine bottles, can indicate tampering. Counterfeits don't just hurt collectors, they poison the entire bourbon ecosystem. When a fake bottle makes its way into the market, it damages the reputation of distilleries like Buffalo Trace, undermines trust in retailers and auction houses, and drives prices even higher as buyers become more cautious. Every year, experts estimate that millions of dollars are lost to counterfeit whiskey in the U.S. alone, and the problem grows as rare bottles continue to skyrocket in value. These scams discourage new enthusiasts, frustrate seasoned collectors, and erode the authenticity that makes bourbon cultural special. If this breakdown helped you stay informed and safer out there in the hunt, make sure you hit subscribe, and it tells the algorithm this kind of content matters. And drop a comment below. Have you ever suspected a fake bottle or seen something that didn't look quite right? I'll feature some of your stories in the next episode. Your experiences help the whole community learn. Remember, bourbon hunters, the hunt is real, the bottles are rare, and the truth matters. Stay sharp, sip responsibly, and keep your collection authentic. Only here with Bourbon Hunter Anonymous. And that's another pour down. If you enjoyed hanging out in the hunt today, don't leave me standing here like an empty bottle on a Sunday morning. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment about what I should track down next. Remember, bourbon may age gracefully, but my YouTube channel only grows if you feed it. I'll see you in the next hunt. Cheers, bourbon hunters.